The morning of September 2nd, 2022, University Park area, Memphis, Tennessee. Central Avenue and Caroline Street are blocked off, and their intersection is flooded with uniformed people and police cars with flashing lights. Law enforcement officials from Memphis and Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, K-9 units, and journalists have gathered here. Crime scene investigators are working, search dogs are sniffing around, ATVs are driving, and a helicopter is circling. There is a chaotic but busy atmosphere. Now, this isn't a filming of another action movie, not an investigation of a mass shooting or disaster. Because of all this activity, a water bottle, sandals, and a broken mobile phone found on a sidewalk. These items belong to 34-year-old Eliza Fletcher, heiress to the multi-billion-dollar fortune of Joseph Origel III, who went for a run that morning and never came home again. The story we're talking about today shows the contrast between Memphis's elite neighborhoods and slums, plus an abandoned judicial system and negligent police work. The tragic and senseless nature of what happened to Eliza Fletcher shocked the public and raised many social, ethical, and legal questions. On September 2nd, 2022, Friday, at 4 a.m., Eliza Fletcher went for a run in the pre-dawn darkness. Eliza was a fitness enthusiast, and running was a normal, essential part of her day. When she didn't return home at her usual time and didn't answer calls, Eliza's husband called the police to report her disappearance. It's worth noting that Eliza Fletcher wasn't the type of woman who would just up and leave, abandon her family and work. Another kind whose disappearance police could ignore. Eliza or Lisa Welford was born on November 9, 1987 in Memphis, Tennessee to Adele Origel and James Beasley Welford. The most notable fact in her biography is undoubtedly her relation to Joseph Origel III, who passed away in 2018 at age 80. The company Origel Incorporation is a distributor of hardware goods and employs over 5,000 people. According to Forbes, the company is currently valued at more than $3 billion. The billionaire's granddaughter chose the profession of a simple teacher and gave her boundless energy and optimism first to local academy students, and from 2015 to the youngest children at St. Mary's Episcopal School. Eliza Fletcher got an excellent education. After graduating from Hutchinson School in 2006, she played soccer on the University of Memphis women's team. Then she graduated from Baylor University, but even that wasn't enough for her, and she got a master's degree in education from Belmont University. Eliza met Richie, or more formally Richard James Fletcher III, at the Presbyterian Church. Richie graduated from college and university and had a bachelor's degree in project management. But he wasn't ambitious, working as both a mechanic at Memphis Coast Guard Management and as a barista. At the time of these events, Richie was working as a manager in both centers' dealership department. On March 8, 2014, their luxurious wedding took place at the Dixon Gallery and Gardens. The local Memphis magazine wrote about it, calling the wedding memorable and truly magical. Eliza became the mother of two cheerful boys, Richard James IV and Harry Welford. Together with their children, Eliza and Richard enjoyed life and outdoor activities. They did water sports, went boating, hiking, running, and biking. According to those who knew her, Eliza always looked at things like the glass was half full, not half empty. She was a natural athlete and grew from children's and university competitions to serious marathons, like the 2019 Boston Marathon or the Run Disney 2022. She ran them in Nike shoes that she designed herself, and she preferred to start each day with a run. And now, this teacher, loving wife, mother of two, who was about to inherit a huge fortune, disappeared. By 7 a.m., officers had registered the missing person report. They didn't wait 3 days to see if she'd show up on her own. While Richard Fletcher was filling the report at the station worried about his wife's disappearance, around 6:45 a.m., a local resident was riding his bike on Central Avenue and saw something suspicious. On the ground lay a water bottle, broken phone, and a pair of Champion brand sports sandals. The police report mentions that the cyclist handed these items to one of the victim's family members, who then handed them to investigators. These pieces of evidence were sent for DNA testing that same day. An exhausting marathon to find the missing billionaire heiress began. Police immediately suspected kidnapping, maybe for ransom. Representatives from all Memphis authorities, services, and departments that could help search for the missing woman arrived at the suspected crime scene. Detectives, experts, divers, and police dogs worked all day and night. They combed through Pine Hill Park, Martin Luther King Riverside Park, and a nearby pond. Police also took the family car from the Fletcher's home and seized their computer and a pair of garden shears as potential evidence. While this might seem irrational, police were checking everything and seemed even slightly suspicious. Detectives found a real lead when reviewing surveillance camera footage from 3876 Central Avenue. The video footage obtained by police shows Eliza Fletcher running. A dark-colored GMC Terrain SUV circles the area for some time, then parks in the spot where Eliza is about to run by. Then, at 4:20 a.m., the footage shows a man from the vehicle running up to Fletcher. There is a brief but violent struggle, and the man forces Eliza into the passenger seat of the SUV. The car sat there for 4 minutes before driving away in an unknown direction. Police began carefully studying the video. The footage showed that the car's taillight was damaged, and they could partially make out that the license plate included the letters DX. In the recordings, investigators again see the black SUV in the same area 24 minutes before the kidnapping. It turns out the driver circled the park area for about half an hour before kidnapping Fletcher. It does look like he planned to kidnap her specifically. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation spread information that a woman had disappeared who was 168 centimeters tall, weighed 62 kilograms, with brown hair and green eyes. She was wearing a pink running top and purple shorts. That same day, the CODIS system found a match. DNA taken from the sandals, bottle, and Fletcher's mobile phone belonged to 38-year-old Cleotha Dwayne Epstein, also mentioned in some reports as Cleotha Henderson. He was well known to police. According to records, no SUV was registered to Epstein. Police began investigating where the suspect was before, during, and after the kidnapping. Through surveillance footage, they determined an address where Epstein was before the incident, and a woman named Gwendolyn Brown lived there. She actually owned a black 2013 GMC Terrain, and its license plate contained the letters DX that investigators had partially seen in the blurry surveillance footage. In one of the reports from Cleotha Epstein's previous arrests, the same address was listed as his residence in the Waterstone Oakway apartment complex. From the laundromat owner where Epstein worked, police learned that he drove that same black SUV. Detectives also got Cleotha Epstein's mobile phone number from her. His phone pinged in the area where Eliza Fletcher was kidnapped on the day she disappeared. Authorities went to Waterstone Oakway and found that same black SUV with a damaged taillight just sitting in the parking lot. As later discovered, Epstein had damaged the car the previous evening on Saturday. He had stolen a wallet accidentally left by a movie theater employee at his workplace in the laundromat and used her credit cards. That same evening, while drunk, he got into a traffic accident which damaged the car. The car was found and its driver was standing in the doorway of the apartment complex, and seeing police, tried to run but was caught. Epstein was charged with especially aggravated kidnapping and tampering with evidence. The tampering meant hiding evidence because forensics found blood traces in the car using luminol and also found that someone had tried to clean these traces. Police concluded that since there was blood in the car, Fletcher had at minimum suffered a serious injury. But where was Eliza herself? Cleotha refused to cooperate with police and stubbornly stayed silent about the kidnapped woman's whereabouts. After finding the car, the Fletcher family and their lawyer, who was also Eliza's uncle, appeared before cameras to appeal to the public through the media. The family offered a $50,000 reward for information about the case. Police worked on all leads. SWAT team members from the Memphis Police Department raided an apartment complex on a tip. According to witnesses, law enforcement broke down the apartment door and brought out a woman, her daughter, and small child and got into a fight with someone in the apartment. But Eliza wasn't there. Meanwhile, investigators had already found out that Epstein had stolen someone's wallet the day before and brought new charges of identity theft, property theft, fraudulent use, and illegal possession of a credit card to keep him in a jail as long as possible. The intensive search for Eliza Fletcher, which the whole world was following, ended on September 5th at 5:07 p.m. at the end of the fourth day after her fatal run. In the 1600 block of Victor Street in Memphis, officers discovered a body behind a small, vacant house. Police noticed vehicle tracks in the tall grass, but the house was abandoned. Approaching officers smelled decomposition. They spread out and behind the back wall of the building discovered an unresponsive woman lying on the ground. The body was in tall grass and blood had seeped into the soil. Photos and videos from the crime scene now show the yellow police tape removed and grass cleared away, but you can still see insects swarming around the horrific crime scene. At the bottom of the stairs in the dirt remains a blood stain. After finding the body, police carefully sifted through the soil underneath it, looking for evidence, and found shell casings from a firearm. The remains matched Fletcher's description. The body was 4.5 kilometers from where she was last seen. When police reviewed video footage from this area, they realized Epstein's car was here at 5:48 a.m. on September 2nd. Eliza was alone with her tormentor for about an hour and a half. At 8:15 p.m. that same evening, officers found a discarded garbage bag on South Orleans Street, just 400 meters from the house where they found the body. The bag contained purple Lululemon running shorts similar to what Eliza Fletcher was last seen wearing. 6 hours after discovering the remains, the medical examiners then finally left the scene, taking the body for examination. According to neighbors, the house where they found the body had been vacant for 10 years after an elderly man moved out, and in recent days they had been smelling a horrible odor. 58-year-old Josephine McGee tied balloons there. In 1983, her own 16-year-old younger sister was raped, beaten, and strangled by 2 men. Josephine left the balloons and a stuffed animal on the steps of the house where they found Eliza as a tribute to the innocent murdered mother of 2. A local resident said police might have found the body sooner if authorities monitored the area. In places, the overgrowth reached 2 meters. Police posted online about finding the remains, although they hadn't officially confirmed the identity yet. The autopsy report released September 29th listed Eliza Fletcher's cause of death as a gunshot wound. The bullet entered the back right of her head from right to left and exited through the facial bones. Signs of sexual assault were found. Obviously, Eliza fought back desperately. She had blunt force trauma to the head. When the body was found, it was significantly decomposed. But strangely, fentanyl, an opioid analgesic used in anesthesia, was found in Eliza's liver sample. Today, fentanyl is considered one of the most powerful synthetic drugs. But Eliza wasn't a hospital patient at the time. Moreover, she was athletic and lived a healthy lifestyle. How did fentanyl get into her body? Testing showed she had 10 nanograms per milliliter in her system, but even half the dose could lead to overdose and death. This is a mystery, but we'll come back to it later. Fentanyl will be mentioned again in this case. The area where the body was found is less than 100 meters from the Longview Gardens apartment complex where Epstein's brother, 36-year-old Mario Epstein, lived. Cleotha and Mario are half-brothers through their mother. The brothers stayed in touch. Cleotha's neighbor at Waterstone Oak Way, Chantel Anthony, told police she had often seen Cleotha Epstein at his brother's house over the past month. Mario is a rapper who promotes his work under the name Yola Biza. or rather promoted would be more accurate, until he ended up behind bars. He was arrested after officers searched his home. Mario was charged with possession of firearms during commission of a dangerous felony, and possession of controlled and narcotic substances. Police found a semi-automatic pistol, scales with a package of heroin and fentanyl. There might be a connection between finding the same narcotic substance in Eliza Fletcher's body and at the suspect's brother's house, but this fact hasn't affected the investigation results so far. Surely Mario, aka Yolabiza, had used drugs for inspiration in his art before, and not just him. In March 2022, Mario's wife, 31-year-old Nikita Dixon, had died as a result of an overdose. Mario struggled heavily with both the loss and stress over the circumstances of his wife's death. They were in bed together when she took her last breath. Nikita left behind a young daughter. Police searched not just the house but also trash containers nearest to the apartment complex, near McDonald's on South Perkins Street, and to local surprise even took some containers away completely for forensic testing. During questioning, Mario said his brother had cleaned the mats in his car with floor cleaner and was acting very strangely, for example washing his clothes in a sink. Officers found confirmation that Cleotha tried to clean up the crime scene on surveillance camera footage. What would police do without them? Around 7:57 a.m., Epstein parked the car at his brother's complex and spent about an hour doing something on the passenger side. Of course, from this angle, it's hard to say exactly what he was doing, but Epstein would go into his brother's house, mess around at the trunk, then return to the passenger seat. Subsequently, Cleotha Epstein was charged with first-degree murder and kidnapping with intent to commit murder. We would never have known about the person with such a name if not for his crime against the mother of two who had done nothing wrong to him. And since we've started to understand his motives, we need to know what kind of person he was. 38-year-old Cleotha Epstein, aka Henderson, had an impressive criminal past. You could even say remarkable. Police reports indicated he had a difficult childhood, but got along well with relatives. On the aggressiveness scale, yes, police have such a scale, his level was 100%, which is quite impressive. Or more precisely, that's the maximum. Epstein terrorized the female residents of the Waterstone Oakway apartment complex. A neighbor named April described him as a weird pervert. Once he watched her go out onto her porch, then went up the stairs himself, stood behind her and offered $100 for intimate services. "You think I'm a whore who needs your money?" the woman sharply replied. "No," he answered. "I just want to have fun." He often made similar offers to other women, and sometimes just sat in his black SUV staring at girls walking by or sitting on their porches. Another neighbor, 35-year-old Latoya, said the suspect made her an indecent proposal too. When she refused, she said he kept beckoning her and was like, "I've got $100. Epstein also harassed her 20-year-old niece, would ambush her and try to force her to go to his apartment. "As far as I know, nobody here agrees to his offers," the neighbor said. "He is creepy. He is really creepy." Cleotha had only been a free man since 2020 after serving 20 of 24 court-ordered years in prison for kidnapping and gunpoint. In May 2001, Epstein and his accomplice brought attorney Camper Durant to a gas station to withdraw money from his credit card at an ATM. Durant was saved by a Memphis house authority security guard who heard his cry for help. The criminals fled but were caught. In 2001, Epstein pleaded guilty to especially aggravated kidnapping and robbery and was sentenced to 24 years in prison. At that time, Cleo was a shocking 16 years old, and this wasn't even his first crime. His accomplice, Markith Cobbins, was 17 and got 7.5 years in prison after pleading guilty to helping with the kidnapping. Durant wrote a letter to the judge suggesting giving Cobbins probation. After all, it was Epstein, not Cobbins, who took Durant's credit card forced him into the trunk of the victim's Mercedes and then just picked up Cobbins along the way. As Durant later recalled, Cobbins begged his friend to stop the car, let this man out, give him back his keys and just leave. But Epstein drove the victim in the trunk for several hours to the Mepco gas station. The lawyer noted that, in his opinion, the older kid was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But when, 2 years later, Epstein himself applied for early release, Durant submitted a very different statement. He said that, in his opinion, Epstein would have killed him if that officer hadn't shown up. As both victim and lawyer, he noted the long list of arrests of the underage teenager, which started with assault charges when he was 11 years old. In 1995, Epstein Henderson became part of the Lemoyne Gardens gangsters gang. He also appeared in juvenile court records on charges including theft, aggravated assault, assault with a weapon, and rape of a man. Epstein appeared in juvenile court 16 times in 5 years before kidnapping the lawyer. As soon as he got out from under his mother's care, within 2 months he was already appearing in court as an adult. Judging by Epstein's file, his violence escalated from one crime to another, and sooner or later he would commit murder. The images that Cleotha posted on his social media accounts tell us a lot about his priorities in life. There were guns, weed, and bold statements about being a wild guy who you shouldn't come near or else there'd be trouble. Real gangster stuff. In his Facebook page in 2019, Epstein wrote, "I have 364 days left. I can't wait to see my family and friends after 20 years. Well, he did get released on parole in 2020. Durant didn't live to see this, as he died in 2013. It seems obvious that if authorities hadn't considered Epstein safe for society, Eliza Fletcher would still be alive. With this in mind, some government officials, including the state's lieutenant governor, went after the district attorney. He defended himself, saying the suspect had served 85% of his 24-year sentence. He also pointed out that the prosecutor's office had actually opposed the parole. The authorities faced harsh criticism and debates erupted around the complicated issue of parole and the justice system in general. Prison is supposed to reform criminals, to eliminate their desire to break the law again. But as Cleotha Epstein's case shows, some people's urge to commit crimes is stronger than their fear of prison, especially considering that for someone who served such a long time, prison doesn't seem that scary anymore. After all, it's the unknown that's frightening. But Cleotha had spent most of his life in prison. The environment in Memphis correctional facilities probably didn't do much to change him for the better. Actually, during the 22 months between Epstein's release from prison in November 2020 and September last year, when he allegedly killed Eliza Fletcher, he caught police attention several times but always managed to avoid charges. The authorities had at least 2 chances to arrest Epstein before Fletcher's death. This photo is from Cleotha Epstein's security guard license application. The state rejected his application in June 2021, citing significant misrepresentation of facts about his arrest history. Yeah, he lied about never being arrested or imprisoned. But somehow Epstein managed to get a job as a security guard at a shipping company in Memphis. Within a week, there was an investigation into burglaries, and he was a suspect. Then Epstein started working at the FedEx Operations Center, where he was also allegedly involved in burglaries and even arrested in June 2022, 3 months before Fletcher's death. These violations could have sent him back to prison for 2 to 4 years, maybe more since he was on parole. The charges in these cases were dropped and even court records were deleted. But determined journalists pieced together evidence that these cases existed. On September 21, 2022, 22-year-old Alicia Franklin appeared on national TV on Good Morning America, where she shared her story. It dropped like a bomb. Franklin met Epstein on a dating app and didn't know anything about him except his name. He invited her to dinner on September 21, 2021, supposedly at his home, but it turned out to be an abandoned house. Alicia realized this too late. When she went inside, her new acquaintance put a gun to her neck and raped her. Alicia was 4 months pregnant, but this didn't stop the attacker. She was sure Epstein would shoot her. As soon as she heard him start his car's engine, she ran away as fast as she could. Alicia reported the attack immediately. Samples were taken from her body and sent to the state crime lab in Jackson, Tennessee. But Alicia's samples ended up in a long queue with similar cases, so they sat in the lab for almost a year. They only did the testing on June 24, 2022, and the DNA match was announced on September 5th. That is, after they found Epstein's other victim, Eliza Fletcher. Remember how in the billionaire heiress case they found a DNA match the very next day after taking samples, but in Alicia Franklin's case, police didn't see any reason to request urgent testing. But that wasn't all. Besides DNA, Alicia gave the officers the suspect's mobile number, took them to the crime scene, described his car, gave detailed account of what happened. But according to her, no one from the police really talked to her. To all her questions, officers said there was enough evidence for court, and that there was no reason for any arrest until he got a DNA match. As police admitted in December 2022, they didn't even take fingerprints from items the attacker had touched, her purse and mobile phone. Franklin, who gave birth to a daughter, sued the city of Memphis for negligence, claiming they could have identified and arrested Epstein months earlier if investigators had done their job properly. Memphis police failed to investigate the rape properly and with due diligence, her lawsuit states. On average, processing evidence in a sexual assault case takes 34 weeks. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee announced plans to speed up the process by hiring 50 new lab technicians, forensic experts, and other staff. Whether he'll succeed, only time will tell. The same relentless time that, sadly, Eliza Fletcher no longer has. Tennessee is a death penalty state, and prosecutors say they're not ruling out this option if Cleotha Epstein is found guilty. Epstein hasn't admitted guilt. In September 2022, Cleotha appeared court wearing a mask, a green prison uniform, and stayed silent during the brief 15-minute hearing. He only commented that his surname should be Henderson, not Epstein. The court decided to refer to him as Epstein Henderson for clarity. Cleotha Dwayne Epstein Henderson, aka Pookie Epstein, aka Cleo Real, as he calls himself on Facebook, told the court he couldn't afford a lawyer. The few $100 he had saved up for seducing neighbors in his apartment complex wasn't enough, unfortunately, even for bail, which the court set at $500 million. In a significant development on October 28, 2024, Cleotha Epstein Henderson appeared in court and finally admitted to his crimes. The 40-year-old pleaded guilty to kidnapping and killing Eliza Fletcher, accepting a life sentence without the possibility of parole. This plea deal saved him from potentially facing the death penalty in Tennessee. The attorney believed a jury trial would likely have resulted in a death sentence. The Fletcher family confronted Epstein Henderson in court with powerful words that echoed through the courtroom. "We have no idea what happened to you to turn you into someone so filled with a desire to hurt people. Whatever it was, it does not excuse or explain what you have done. You have changed our lives forever, and nothing will ever be the same," they stated. "Your actions were evil. There is no other word for it. You murdered Lisa, even though she did nothing to deserve it." In a separate statement to the media, the family acknowledged the resolution. No legal resolution and no sentence can diminish the anguish of Lisa's murder. "We accept the outcome that her murderer has pleaded guilty to all charges, will wake up in a prison for the rest of his life, and cannot harm anyone else." The story of Alicia Franklin found its resolution as well. In April 2024, before his plea in the Fletcher case, Epstein Henderson faced a 3-day trial for Franklin's 2021 rape. The jury convicted him of aggravated rape and being a convicted felon in possession of a handgun, along with a lesser charge of aggravated kidnapping. The DNA evidence from Franklin's rape kit, which had initially sat untested for nearly a year, finally helped bring her attacker to justice. Memphis continues to honor Eliza's memory. She is remembered not just as a victim of a terrible crime, but as a devoted mother of two, an accomplished teacher at St. Mary's Episcopal School, and a passionate runner. Her athletic achievements included completing the St. Jude Marathon with an impressive time of 3:26 and 9 seconds, finishing 22nd among all female runners and qualifying for the elite Boston Marathon. George Robertson, the senior pastor at Second Presbyterian Church, where Eliza and Richard married in 2014, remembered her as being full of life. The church was where she and Richard built their family life, bringing their two young sons, who, as Robertson recalled, would give him a hug every week. Few people remained unmoved by Eliza Fletcher's story. This wasn't a kidnapping for ransom, as it might have seemed at first. Her inheritance wasn't the reason for her death, nor did it bring salvation. That morning, she was just an attractive woman out jogging, with her hair in a high ponytail. Cleotha Epstein didn't know her before. Maybe he understood that he had soon returned to prison for the credit card theft committed the day before and wanted to commit sexual assault or murder before that, or both. The criminal saw Eliza only as an object for satisfying his desires, a victim, not a person, a mother of two children, caring wife, daughter, and sister, a teacher who worked with little kids. The case had indeed brought significant changes to Memphis and beyond. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation has implemented reforms to expedite DNA testing in violent crime cases, addressing one of the key issues highlighted by Alicia Franklin's case. The state has increased funding for forensic labs and hired additional staff to process evidence more quickly. Meanwhile, Eliza's legacy continues to inspire. The Let's Finish Liza's Run movement has grown into an annual event, drawing participants from across the country. More importantly, it has evolved into a platform for advocating women's safety and supporting victims of violent crimes. Several organizations have established scholarships and safety programs in Eliza's name, ensuring that her tragic death continues to create positive change in the community. The butterfly effect, unfortunately, isn't fully understood yet. If Epstein hadn't gotten parole, he might never have met Alicia Franklin and Eliza Fletcher. In Franklin's case, had a breakthrough, Epstein would never have seen this sky without prison bars and wouldn't have forced a jogger into his car. Of course, such thoughts bring anger and bitterness, and they'll never leave Eliza Fletcher's family and his victim Alicia Franklin. If only. Even if he hadn't been released on parole after just 4 years, Epstein, extremely dangerous and aggressive, would have been freed anyway after serving his full sentence. That's state law. And who knows, maybe he would still have spotted single mom Alicia Franklin on Tinder, and on another early morning would still have met Eliza Fletcher jogging. But we'll never know what would have happened if, and think we know for sure sooner or later someone would have suffered at Epstein's hands again. Terribly, there were also criticism against Eliza herself, saying Memphis is a dangerous city and she should have known jogging at 4 a.m. wasn't safe and shouldn't have left home at that time and in such clothes. One journalist responded that everyone should be able to live and walk in any part of America without risking being raped or killed. Many women expressed outrage at these accusations and posted selfies in running clothes in solidarity with the deceased. Memphis honored Eliza's memory. Starting at 4 a.m. on September 9, hundreds of people took to Memphis streets for Finish Liza's Run, covering the 8-mile route that Fletcher loved to run. Many stopping to leave flowers or light candles at the spot where she was kidnapped. Eliza Fletcher's story made the public pay attention to the safety of women who jog alone. Early morning is the best time for running, and it's also when streets and parks are empty, and the city's peacefulness and sleepiness create a sense of calm. There is an illusion that a person in motion is safer than someone sitting at a bus stop, and female athletes suddenly realized how vulnerable they were. Self-defense courses became hugely popular. Women started taking sharp objects and devices on runs to protect themselves if attacked. Discussions started about what to wear and what time of day to run to avoid becoming a victim. But the truth is, as long as there is someone planning to commit murder, there is no safe place, safe time, or safe activity. All we can do is not let people like Cleotha Epstein Henderson instill fear in us. Life goes on, fitness fans still exercise, run through Memphis neighborhoods in early morning twilight, but now armed with pepper spray and trained in hand-to-hand self-defense. This is another moment from this story where an event led to an unexpected but positive turn. Massive and significant changes in the lives and thinking of huge numbers of people. And who knows, maybe the story of Eliza Fletcher's death following the same butterfly effect will someday save someone's life.